We are recording.
Okay. Welcome to Minister Ben Willis Blast Off Podcast. Uncut, unapologetic, straight with no chaser. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe. That helps my content. That helps my channel. So please subscribe. Tell everybody, tell your friends to check out Minister Ben Willis Blast Off Podcast. I thank you so much. I thank you to the viewing and listening audience, those who support me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'll continue to work hard and bring content to you. Everything that I do is authentic. It is. It is real as it comes. Today is a very personal show today for me. It's about, my last name is Willis. This is about the Willises. I am the oldest of Benjamin Willis Sr. and Frances Faye Willis. I am the oldest child. And I'm Benjamin Willis Jr. And you know, my mom, she comes from a big family. You know, she's the youngest of 18 siblings. And so, as you can imagine, their family is very big. I have her mother and her father and her siblings, and then their children, which is my cousins. It's a huge family. That's one thing. But I'm a Willis. My mother's maiden name is Allen. So that's you. They're huge side of their family. But I'm a Willis. I'm from my father. And I don't know much about that side of the family. I never met my grandfather. Never met him. In fact, maybe 7 years ago, I found out what his name was. His name was Samuel Willis. My father, Benjamin Willis Sr., was born in Helena, Arkansas. I knew that. And of course, his mother, Willabelle Belcher, that's my grandmother. I know both of them. I know my father and I know my grandmother. That's it. And my dad's father, Samuel Willis, I have no recollection of him. When I was little, they never mentioned him. They never mentioned anything about him. So I don't have no idea. That part of me, I don't know. But I am a Willis. So what I'm doing today is, this show is for my descendants, for those who come after me, my children, my grandchildren, and my great down the line. That's what this show is for. It's for my descendants. And it's very personal to me because this is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And I said, well, let me get in here and delve into it because it's some important aspects that people need to find out and my family need to know about all the different things. And I can help other people find out about their families and what they should do, because there's people coming behind you. And I don't want to leave no question mark to any one of my descendants. There will be no question mark after today. Well, I start with my father, Benjamin Willis Sr. He was, like I said, he was born in Helena, Arkansas, and they moved to Chicago when he was a little boy. And so, being in my, my father was a good man. He's a good family man, and like I say, I'm in a position to where I'm here to see exactly what happened. It's not word of mouth for me. I'm there. I've seen everything, so I'm talking about things that I know, not something that I see or heard about, and I need to give that out there. But when I recall and think about my dad, who's deceased now, he's deceased now. He was a good family man. He wanted the best for us, and he got us the best. My mom and my dad, They were very young when they had me, and they were a young couple. They were a young married couple that supported their children and supported their family. My dad was he was in the military, he was in the Air Force. He has that military background and that discipline. He really emphasized that. And like I said, I couldn't complain about my childhood and growing up with my mother and father. I can't complain. And I have other siblings. I have a sister named Monica. I have she's still around. My brother Lewis Willis, he passed away, and my brother James Willis passed away. Those are my younger brothers that passed away. But they are my siblings from my mother and my father. They are Willises. And we're talking about the Willis family. We're talking about that. So what I saw in my father, I seen dedication, I seen discipline. I seen that. I seen a man that wanted the best. And he always reached out and got the best. And so that's what we saw, and that's what we were used to. And like I say, he was disciplined. He didn't play no stuff now. You know, was he mean? No, he was not mean. He was a loving dad. But he expect structure. He had structure. And I thank him for that to this day. He was, I looked at him as my mentor. You know, I try to emulate a lot of things that my father was and what he does. And even to this day, I still do that. You know, but he had a temper though. He can go from 0 to 10. That's the Willis way. And that's in our DNA. From 0 to 10, my father can go with his temper. So, same thing with me. I can go 0 to 10 with my temper. My sister Monica Willis, guess what? She got the gene too. She can go from 0 to 10 with her temper. My brother Lewis Willis, not so much. Not so much. And my brother James Willis, not so much. That gene didn't hit them. They didn't catch that temper gene. And I also see that gene passed down through my children. There is a Benjamin Willis III, which is my son, my oldest son. His temper, 0 to 10. And my son under him, Dominique David Willis, his temper, 0 to 10. My next son under him, Jamil Willis, his temper, 0 to 10. And my youngest son, Joshua Willis, not so much. So you can see that the gene of the Willises is 0 to 10. And I'm able to recognize that because I can look at the originator, as far as I'm concerned, is my dad. So my dad is my reference point that I can use as far as the Willis attributes. Now, when I look at I'm looking at all those who have the Willis gene in them. So the next is my sister, Monica Willis. Yes, again, like I say, she has that, she can go from 0 to 10 with her temper. Her oldest child, Tanika, not so much. She doesn't have it. She doesn't have that temper. Now her next daughter, Sharice, she has that temper, 0 to 10. And her youngest daughter, Emily Willis, she has a temper 0 to 10. Yes, maybe, 0 to 20, as I heard. And my sister's son, Antonio, not so much. So, and then my brother Lewis, his children, his daughters, Kanisha, not so much. But his other daughter, his youngest daughter, Latrice, 0 to 10. My brother James, his daughter, Jaleesa, not so much. So the point I'm making is, in the Willis gene, the temper can go from 0 to 10. And the thing is, what's real funny to me is that my nieces, all my nieces are beautiful, and they have beautiful hearts and beautiful souls, and they're just fantastic. And then to see them turn from that to a demon in a span of 10 seconds is amazing. But I know where that came from, because it comes from my dad. That's the Willis way. I've seen that. Now, but there's other attributes, though, that I see from my father, that I see in myself and my siblings, and I see in my nieces and nephews, is that, being disciplined and wanting to have the best. All of them strive to have the best, and they're doing well in life. And I want them to know that this is where these things come from. Because a lot of people don't know exactly what they're doing or what their background is, their family background is. They just go about life doing these things. But those that pay attention and understand and recognize that a lot of those attributes come from those before them. And so I just want to let my family know that, and my descendants know, that these are some of the attributes that is bestowed upon them. Now, I watched my dad, again, like I say, he was a hardworking man, but my dad used to be a Boy Scout leader, a Boy Scout master. So he was an organizer. He organized things in the community. And I used to be with him 100%. I was little. I wasn't old enough to be in the Boy Scouts, but I did all the activities that they did because I just would hang out with my dad. And he used to run the Pony League baseball team in the community. And of course, like I said, I would be there too, and I would they would let me play with the older guys because my dad was the coach. And so I saw those types of things. And so with me, I organized things. And I didn't know at first, when I started tapping into the attributes of what my dad is, I said, oh, okay, this is where I get that from. And so I like organizing different things. I like organizing and seeing the tasks through. And so, I'm like I said, I'm focusing on my dad because that's the Willis way. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Willis way of doing things and where it comes from. Now, spiritually, I'm a minister, but I never saw my dad. In fact, I can remember when we were little and we're getting ready to go to church because, like our household, Sunday morning, you got to get up and your mom getting ready to take you to church. And we had to, clean up and put our clothes on to go to church. And my dad would just be sitting there on the couch. And I'm dating myself, the TV show called Flash Gordon. My father used to be sitting there watching Flash Gordon as we're going out the door, getting ready to go to church. And I just sit there and look at him, and I just say, man, I can't wait till I get a chance where I can just sit down and not go to church and watch Flash Gordon just like him. And so, but the thing is, his mother, my grandmother, she was a devout Christian. She was a devout Christian woman, a very praying woman, but my father never showed any glimpse of any type of spirituality. But I knew he had it in him because it was always all around him. But he never showed that that part. And the emotional aspect of my dad he would think things through. He was very cunning on the way he thought and how he did things. He would know things, but he would keep them to himself. He was very sharp like that. In other words, he knows some stuff on an individual or know about what an individual is doing. He would not expose it or anything like that. He would keep it to himself and let it play out. And I find myself doing the same thing. In other words, if you doing something or have some bad intentions or ill will against me, I won't show my hand right away. I'll just know who you are, and I would watch you. And that is what my dad was good at doing. And I do that myself. And I see that in some of my siblings, and I see that also in some of my children, and I see that also in some of my nieces and nephews. That's the Willis way. And I see those types of things because I'm blessed to be around when my dad was here, and I'm still here. I'm blessed to see that in the offsprings. And I look at that and I just say, I remember the time my grandmother passed away, my dad's mother, and so I was looking to see if he would crack because I never saw my dad crack. In other words, I never seen my dad get emotional as far as hurting or anything like that. Never saw that. It was always that staunch, strong statue. That's what I saw all the time. But human beings, they fold, they get weak, and never saw that. So at my grandmother's funeral, I watched my dad, and I watched his movements to see how he was moving. And of course, it was a little off. But I never seen him shed a tear or anything like that. He just kept the same face, and it's like, okay, he's not a robot, and that he is a human being. And I seen that, and I said, yeah, and that's cool. I appreciate that, and I understand that. That's the Willis way. Other things about my father, he really loved his family, and I think his crown jewel is my sister. That's his only daughter. I think if something happened to her, I think that would break him down. Yeah. Yeah, just talking about that. It does something to me. That's how much he was crazy about his little girl. She couldn't do no wrong. She would get away with all kinds of stuff. And she is just, her temper is almost matches my dad's temper. And he was, that was his crown jewel, my sister. So I look at that, and it is so important that I know and then reveal and give this information out about the Willis way. My dad, he passed away. He had prostate cancer. And I remember when I was talking to him when he was in the hospital, and he got out and he told me, he says, hey, listen. He said, they told me I got the big C. And I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. And so, of course, now my dad, who encouraged me, now I'm encouraging him. And of course, I'm saying all the positive things I can say and supposed to in support of him. And he said, oh, well, the doctors say he has 6 months to live, and he had pancreatic cancer. And so I'm looking, I said, well, okay, let's we'll attack it and we'll do what we have to do. So, and we would talk regularly. We'll talk all the time. You know, me and my dad will talk all the time. And I remember the day he was in the VA hospital. He was in the VA hospital, and I would call regularly to check on him, to see how he's doing. And I just called on a regular basis, you know, and the doctors and the nurses, they all knew me. And, you know, me just trying to understand cancer, I just knew that you can have, have chemotherapy or whatever kind of treatments and stuff like that, and be all right with that and get better. And so when I asked them about pancreatic cancer, they said, there's nothing we can do for that. The only thing we can do for that is just make them comfortable. And so I said, okay, you know, however. And they couldn't really they didn't want to go real into detail about it because there was still just some things that they couldn't say to me. So I remember the day I called, and he would be in the hospital, he'd get out, and he'd go back, and things of that nature. And so the one particular day, I called, and they told me, the nurse told me, she said, well, I asked to see how my dad was doing, and she said, he's out of the computer. And she said, you know what I mean by that? And I knew what it meant. It meant he passed away. So, me and my brother, we went to my dad's funeral. We went to my dad's funeral. It was in Memphis, Tennessee. And we went there, and I was in a position. Now, and my younger brother, he asked me, he says, man, don't that tear you up? Dad is gone, you know, and it's just, and I couldn't break down or anything like that. I kept that staunch stance, and went to the funeral and everything, and now it's on me to be what I'm supposed to be, because I got the information. Not only did he give me instructions, but he showed me how to do that. And he showed me what it takes. He didn't just talk, he just showed me what it takes. And I just took those instructions and I use them to this day. And I do that. Who you see today is what I got from Benjamin Willis Sr., you know, the Willis way. And so and that's who I am. And so that what you see me and my children see me and my grandchildren see me. Oh, let me talk about my grandchildren. Brendan Willis, that's my grandson. Ali Willis, that's my grandson. Oh, and my little beloved granddaughter, Navi Willis. She's like 18 months. I have a granddaughter. I don't have no daughters, but I got me a granddaughter. And yeah, and they go from 0 to 10. And what I tell my son was telling me that Navi, my 18-month-old granddaughter, she go from 0 to 10. The Willis way. So, it is, but anyway, getting back to my dad, because why I'm hammering in on my dad is because this is the information that I get about the lineage of Willises. So he's my focal point, because I didn't know my granddad. I didn't know Samuel Willis. I would have loved to met him. And I'm gonna get to him in a second. So as my dad passed on, like I said, my younger brother James Willis questioned me. He said, "Man, how?" I said, "Well, that's just the way it is, and death is a reality." So and I took it that way, and what he gave me, I use, and I continue to use. Now here's the thing, because it's the elephant in the room. I don't know why they never introduced me to my grandfather, Samuel Willis. You know, when you're little, you just go about, being a child and playing games and things of that nature. And I started thinking, as you get older, you start really thinking about things and thinking about your past and who was it and things of that nature. And I said, how come my grandmother never took me around to see Samuel Willis, my grandfather? And then as my father, how come he never say, hey, let's go and take you to see my dad? And so all that does is leave speculation. And you can think one way or the other. And I know that during those times, because I'm 70 plus years old. This is 2026. I'm here in Chicago, Illinois. But anyway, back in the 50s and the 60s, people were very secretive. People didn't talk about things. They kept things quiet. You didn't know. And then those answers the people passed on, those questions are unanswered. And so though they leave for the people that are still here to try to unpack them and try to come up with something, which really, when you think about it, is it really fair for those that's coming behind you to unpack different things? I don't think so personally, but I do understand what they had to go through during those times too. Everything was quiet. I remember when I was little, people would pass away and you would just go to the funeral and that's that. But you didn't know what they died of. If you know what they passed of, you will be able to pass that along to your children and things of that nature so that they can get ahead of it. So not knowing who my grandfather was, Samuel Willis, and why my grandmother didn't really mention him, and my father, I can't remember they really mentioned him, you start thinking. And I want to say this to people who knows their family history, share it to your family. The reason why, because that could be a decision of life and death. This is what I mean by that. You know, when they have secrets like this and things like that, I've known an instance where this lady had a baby with this guy. His last name was Smith. And she fell out with him. She didn't like him no more. And she gets her new boyfriend. His last name is Jones. But because she don't like this guy Smith, she gives the child that she had with Smith, the guy that she liked, she gave her that baby, the other guy's last name, Jones. And so she had 3 other children with Mr. Jones. And once those children became grown-ups, and the young fella had to get a kidney transplant, or else he would have to go on the list. And it was a touch and go situation for the young man, and went to the doctor's office. They said, well, if you can get someone that will donate the kidney to you and have a match, we can do this and you don't have to go on the list. Well, he said, yeah, I'll get my brother. And so the brother comes in there and they say it's not a match. And they were puzzled because this is a life and death situation. So he said, let me get my sister. Well, something is wrong, but let me get my sister and see, because she would do it. And so she said, yeah, no problem whatsoever. I will do this. I'll go donate my kidney to you. Because, he had this, both of them had families and children. He said, listen, now let's do this just to prolong your life. She wasn't a match. And one of the reasons why they weren't a match, because that wasn't their biological brother. They were Joneses. He was a Smith. But because the mother didn't like Mr. Smith, she gave Mr. Smith's child Mr. Jones' last name. So this young child, the young guy grew up thinking his last name was Jones. See, those types of things, and he died. And he died waiting for a kidney. He died waiting for a kidney. See, those decisions that adults make, it will affect children's lives. It is so many, if you'll be more surprised that there's more children walking around thinking, got a last name, thinking that's them. And it's not. Because of the parents' decision to make bad decisions. And that is a bad decision. It is. Because you don't know, because you can affect other people. Yeah, that's a reality. That's a life and death situation. It's anybody that's out there teetering on that, be straight up, be forthright. Because if you care about your children, and you care about your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, then you need to be straight up. Because if they need to find their bloodlines that's connected to, you need to do that. There's so many different secrets that was going on during them times. You got children that grew up saying, this is my mother and father, and my auntie lived down the street, and wind up later on finding out that that's their grandmother, and the lady down the street is their mother. So all these types of things that the adults be making those decisions, and why, I don't know. And who knows what they had to go through during those times, because I can remember all those types of things. I can remember a lot of that. It was a lot of stuff going on. I seen it. If you're a young lady, you got pregnant, it was a shame on your family and everybody else. You couldn't even go to school no more. They would take you out of school, maybe put you in what's called night school. And some people just take you and send you down south and hide you out and let you have a baby and then bring you back. All these types of things that was going on is true. I remember. I seen it. So the thing is to be upfront about what we're doing today. And like I say, with me, I'm letting it be known as far as for my descendants, the Willises, my descendants. You're getting it from the horse's mouth. You're getting it from me. Because I was there and I see it. I seen the actions of my dad, his attributes. I seen it in me. And I seen it in my siblings. I see it in my children. And I see it in my nieces and nephews, how they move. And I can see that because that's my point of reference is my dad. That's the Willis way. I see that. And so that's so important. And see, when we have health issues, we have to know that. We have to know about health. What is your family history? It's so serious. If you don't know your family health history, it's depending on life and death. It's not a joke. I know my dad passed away of pancreatic cancer. I remember my mother telling me, she says, my mom told me, she says, you know, all our family, she's talking about her side of the family. She said, all we deal with is arthritis. That's what we deal with. We have arthritis. And I said, okay. And that's all I heard, hammering, arthritis. That's all we have. We have that. I said, all right. I took it for that. So when I go to the doctor, you know, they give you a list of your family history. Do you have this? Do you have that? And I'll check off. No. I'll see arthritis. I'll check arthritis. Because that's what we have. So my mother's mother died. She dies of a heart attack. I said, oh, okay, grandma died of a heart attack. Then I see my uncle, he died of diabetes. Okay. I see my auntie, my mother's sister died of cancer. My mother died of a heart attack. My younger brother died of a heart attack. My other brother died of cancer, and he had diabetes. I started looking at everything, and all my mother and all her siblings and her mother and father, all of them are gone. It was heart attacks, cancer, and diabetes. And I'm saying, guess what? On my mother's side of things, it's cancer, diabetes, and heart problems. It wasn't arthritis. And so, and they come from this old adage in church, I've heard it a lot, that they say, we ain't claiming that. If you go to the doctor and get diagnosed with an ailment, the first thing they say is, we ain't claiming that. Where that stuff come from, I don't know. And it could be from just hope and everything else. But actually it's ignorance. It's ignorance. And the root word of ignorance is to ignore. That's the root word of ignorance. And so you're ignoring the fact that this is what you've been diagnosed with. And just saying you ain't claiming it is not going to do it. I happened to be in church with my mother one day, and one of her church members had diagnosed with cancer. And the pastor gets up to the pulpit and say, we're not going to claim that. And everybody say, amen, we're not claiming that she has cancer. 3 weeks later, she died. That don't stop you having that ailment just because you say you don't claim it. So that's important that you give these things to your children and your children's children if you care about them. My dad, again, like I say, he died of cancer. So I tell my sons, my children, make certain you get screened, make certain you get checked, make certain that you check everything, and these are the things that you must be concerned about. And I would emphasize to other people and other families, find out about your family history. Because mine is this. The Willises don't have to do no Ancestry.com. Because you could just start with me and my dad. I'm telling you. You don't have to get hustled on, they're not accurate anyway. You check one place, they're going to tell you from there. They're going to check this other place, they're going to tell you from here. But when you see me, you know what you see. You know exactly what you see. And this is what I claim who I am. I'm a black man here in America. That's what I am, period. Ain't no percentage of this or that. And also, no, my grandmothers were not Indians, because that's a thing that's always talked about too. But anyway, it is good to know your family history for your descendants. This show is personal for me because it's for my descendants, and that's why I'm doing this show. I just want to thank God that I'm able to speak on this, because this has been on my mind for quite some time, and it's something that I want to give before I leave the planet, that I can help those that are coming behind me. I always want to make a difference for those that come behind me. And the Willis way is real. I know, because I'm living it every day, and I love everything about it. I have a lot of pride in my last name and where I come from. And like I say, for the man that I never met, Samuel Willis, I thank him. I thank him for having a gleam in his eye for my grandmother to produce my father that gave me life and put me here on this planet. So I want to thank him. I'm getting ready to sign off now. This is Minister Ben Willis Blast Off Podcast, uncut, unapologetic, straight with no chaser. Thank you, and see you soon.